Hey guys. Welcome to Secrets Behind the Stars. All the whispers, all the looks, all the little clues you've been collecting are about to come together in one place, because tonight we're diving into the behind-the-scenes murmur that has set the gossip world alight. Before we get swept up in all the feels, don't forget to subscribe and share, because this one touches the heart of a story that started as a spark on a set and has steadily turned into a fire everyone can feel from miles away. It's about Gökberk Yıldırım and Semra Arda, and the words Gökberk has been using when the cameras are off and only trusted friends are listening. What did he say? That's what everyone wants to know. It wasn't shouted from a stage or dropped in a glossy magazine spread, it slid out softly in private conversations, a confession wrapped in a smile, and it traveled faster than a headline. Those who heard him describe Semra as the axis of his life couldn't keep it to themselves. And somewhere between the warmth of a late-night dinner with friends and a quiet ride home in the dark, the phrase everyone keeps repeating took shape: marriage with Semra is close. Not a rumor made from thin air, not a fantasy woven by fans, but an interpretation born from how his voice changes when he says her name, how he leans forward when the topic turns to the future, and how he talks now as if that future already has a place set at the table. If you've been following their trajectory, you already know how it began. A project brought them together, the kind where long days blur into nights and two people learn each other's rhythms between resets and lighting checks. First there was professional respect, then friendship that felt easy and unforced. And then, when no one was pushing, something gentler bloomed. It showed up in the natural way they looked at each other between takes, in the calm that seemed to settle around them when they got to breathe the same air without everyone watching. That chemistry on set didn't just fade when the director called cut, it stepped off the stage and followed them into real life, where a couple learned to exist in a world that never stops asking questions. For the longest time, they chose careful silence. Not denial, not games, just thoughtful distance. Each interview stayed cautious. Each public moment was sincere but contained. Yet those who saw them together when the spotlight softened could sense a certainty underneath that quiet. And now, with murmurs slipping out of Gökberk's inner circle, it feels like the hush is thinning, like he has decided that some things are simply too joyous to keep wrapped in secrecy forever. Here's what people close to him are saying: Gökberk has centered his life around his relationship with Semra. Even with schedules that would exhaust anyone else, they carve out hours that belong only to them. They plan weekends as if they're mapping constellations, connecting each free day into something that looks like a sky they can count on. He calls her his life partner when he's at dinner with friends, and he has stopped pretending the idea of marriage is a faraway concept. He speaks of it with a peaceful certainty that suggests the door has already been opened and the room beyond it feels like home. And what about Semra? Her poise has always been her armor, and she wears it beautifully. Ask her about her private world in an interview and she'll smile, polite and luminous, and guide the question gently back to her work. But those who know her describe something quietly glowing. They say she's balancing her career milestones with an inner compass that points toward the life she's building with Gökberk. They say she believes this is real, lasting, and worth the careful steps they've both chosen. Now, the part that sent the rumor mill into overdrive: the families. No official announcements, no staged portraits. But yes, the story goes that the families have met, and not just met, but met in a way that made everyone breathe out a little. Approval, warmth, a sense that this isn't a fling to be watched with suspicion but a bond to be welcomed. And every time they slip away for a quick trip, no crowded beaches, no headline-hunting rendezvous, just quiet corners where they can hear themselves think, the speculation gets louder. Is there an engagement on the horizon? Is there a surprise waiting in a small box that has already been chosen, already hidden, already loved? What makes this shift so electrifying is that, until recently, Gökberk stepped around the concept of marriage like a line he wasn't in a rush to cross. He is ambitious, everyone knows that. He cares deeply about the work, about choosing his next role as carefully as he chooses the people he lets into his life. But the language he's using now when he talks about Semra is different. It is deliberate. It is gentle and firm at the same time. It makes people who hear it feel like they're witnessing a beginning rather than a maybe. Fans feel it too. Social media threads spin into late-night love letters to the pair. People post clips where the glances are a little too warm for just colleagues, and they write captions that read like wishes, the most compatible couple of the year, may this love find its happy ever after. And when the whispers from that inner circle surfaced, marriage is close. The comment sections lit up with the same phrase, over and over again, this time it's for real. It is the progression that makes it believable. They didn't rush. They didn't court attention. They were present for each other in ways that most people never see but always feel. Every private victory shared. And now, people around them say, Gökberk can't get through a conversation about the future without Semra sitting in the center of it, like the point from which the compass draws every direction. They met on a project, yes. But the project was only the door. The room beyond it is where they learned what it means to be a team. Directors noticed how naturally their scenes unfolded. Crew members remember them staying back to rehearse, not because anyone asked them to, but because they wanted it to feel effortless. That ease didn't belong to the script. It belonged to them. And when the cameras were packed away, they carried it with them, a rhythm that didn't need rehearsal anymore. Recently, the warmth in Gökberk's voice when he speaks about Semra in private has been impossible to ignore. Friends say he calls her the person who gave meaning to everything in his life. They say he talks about time differently now, as something he wants to build, not just spend. They say that when he mentions the future, he sounds like a man who has found the coordinates and is already on the journey. In one conversation that has now become its own legend, he confided that everything in his life is taking shape, and no one in the room doubted who stood at the heart of that shape. Meanwhile, Semra's calm remains. She is steady. She shows up for her work with full focus, and then she shows up for him with the same loyalty. Her close friends describe small rituals that mean the world, the way she reads his scripts with him when the night is quiet, the way he visits her set with coffee and a grin when she's deep in a challenging scene, the way they debrief the day not to gossip but to grow. These aren't grand gestures. They're the kind that last. So where does that leave us? In a place that feels like the edge of something beautiful. No press conference, no giant reveal, but a growing certainty in the spaces where truth lives. You can see it in the trips they've taken when they slip out of the city, in the easy way they walk next to each other when they think no one is watching, in the pauses that say more than words. You can hear it in how he describes her without naming her, and in how she laughs when someone tries to pull more out of her than she's ready to say. In the world of stardom, timing can be everything. Both of them are rising, catching light in new ways, taking on roles that stretch them and win them more admiration. Some might say this is when love gets pushed to the side. But that's not the story here. Here, the success has not crowded out the relationship, it has made it clearer. It is as if their professional peaks are not competing with their personal life but harmonizing with it, each note sharpening the other until the melody feels inevitable. Those closest to the couple insist that none of this is pie-in-the-sky dreaming. They've seen the hard parts, the schedules that don't line up, the weeks of distance, the quiet disappointments when plans have to change. And yet, they say, the relationship has held, not because it never faced a storm, but because both of them learned how to share a coat when the rain came. That's what makes people believe in whispers about rings and vows and a new chapter that doesn't need applause to be real. Will there be a surprise engagement? That is the question that keeps surfacing, the one fans ask as if asking could move time forward. The only honest answer is that all the signs point to a yes that has not yet been spoken aloud. When the families met, the air was warm. When they travel to places that feel like pockets of peace. When he speaks about her, he sounds like a man already standing in a doorway he plans to walk through. And when she thinks no one is paying attention, she lets her happiness show the way sunlight slips through a curtain, soft, easy, undeniable. From the very first days, when their friendship was the safe ground on which everything else was built, to now, when their partnership feels like a promise unfolding piece by piece, the story has never been about spectacle. It has been about choosing each other consistently. It has been about threading meaning through a life that could be too busy to notice it, and refusing to let that happen. That is why these whispers resonate. They fit. They belong. They make sense. So stay with us, because if there is one thing we can feel in our bones tonight, it's that the next page is close enough to touch. The spotlight may catch the moment, or it may not. They may take a quiet walk instead of a red carpet. They may toast with family in a kitchen rather than before a wall of cameras. However they choose it, the story that started with a simple scene and a shared glance has turned into a future that both of them seem ready to claim. This is Secrets Behind the Stars, and you've just heard why the city's late-night conversations keep circling back to one couple and one idea that no longer sounds like a fantasy. Listen to how he says her name. Watch how she looks at him when she thinks she can get away with it. Notice how the plans they make are no longer temporary. Marriage with Semra is close, this is what the whispers say. And for once, the whispers feel less like noise and more like the truth humming just beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. If you felt that hum the way we did, make sure you're subscribed, because when the moment arrives, and it feels like it will, we'll be right here to tell you how it unfolded, what they wore, who cried first, and what comes next for two people who found each other in a world where it's so easy to lose your way. Until then, keep your eyes on the quiet smiles and the weekend getaways, and remember that sometimes the biggest stories are the ones that choose to grow gently, in their own time, until suddenly they're impossible to miss.